Hi there. I just wanted to make a quick video about the Maggie TVS2300 roots blower for the 4th gen F bodies. If you have a LS1 Camaro or Firebird, you might have some difficulty installing these things because the kit that comes from Hawks is very incomplete. There's a lot of fabrication involved, and I thought I'd go over a couple things just to make it easier for you guys, and also so you know kind of what you're in for. From looking at the pictures on the website, there's shims that are included that go between the body of the car and the K-member. That's obvious to lower the car, but I'm going to go over some of the other stuff that you might not be aware of. Just a couple of little things that might help you out. So, so I'll cover those in this video today. So here we have the Maggie TVS2300 from Hawks, and we just installed it on a Trans Am Convertible with an LS1. It used to be an LS1. Actually, we've changed the motor on this one. It's an LS2 now, but the kit is made for an LS1. And what a lot of people don't realize is the kit that comes from Hawks is very incomplete. There's a lot of fabrication involved. And so I'm going to go over a couple of things that might make it a little bit easier for you, or might give you an idea of what you have in store if you decide to do one of these. Of course, there's some of the obvious things that people know about. You have to cut and notch your cowl, and Hawks does include a shorter wiper arm that you'll use after that. And there is going to be some welding involved as well. And then, of course, there are shims included in the kit that lower the K-member a little bit so that you can clear the blower under your hood. Another thing that they don't tell you about is this part here, the throat. This is something you need to fabricate. They'll send you this plate and a tube in between. You need to cut it at an angle and measure it out and weld it yourself so that it'll fit and clear your hood. And there's no details on how to do that. You basically have to measure it and guess and see what works. Another thing people don't realize is the throttle body is going to be installed upside down to clear, also for clearance. Otherwise, it won't clear your hood. And then the IAT and IAC wires will also have to be lengthened. The IAT, sorry, not the IAT, the throttle position sensor and the IAC has to be lengthened. The IAT actually goes into the blower. I'll talk about that in a second. The TPS has to be longer than the IAC because, as you can see, it mounts on the front. And then I routed it underneath the throttle body with a few zip ties and tied it to the cable mount. So I think that's approximately, I lengthened it by approximately 10 inches for both of them, for the TPS and the IAC. The IAT you have to route it back here. There's going to be 2 white wires that come out of the blower. They're behind here. I don't know if we can see it or not. Let me get my flashlight. It's buried now it's behind this evap solenoid. But it's in there. You have to basically solder them together there. And another thing you have to do is, you can see here, we have to modify the evap line as well because it's going to be in a different location now. So we cut the evap line, put in a rubber hose in between because it's got to be connected to this fuel rail over here. And then one of the fittings goes to one of the lines off the blower. The other line off the blower is going to go to the brake booster. And the fuel line, you have to make your own fuel line because the stock one, you can't bend it enough to get a nice curve and turn to get into the fuel rail. So this is going to be a new 6AN fuel line. We had a local shop do it for us, and So that was something that was unexpected as well, that we were hoping would have been included. The other thing is there's going to be 2 cooling hoses that come off the back of the blower, and the one goes to is the feed line, and one is the return. I had one going. I had the feed one going into from the driver's side. So you turn one towards the driver's side and you turn one towards the passenger side. So one goes towards the reservoir, and then one is coming basically from the intercooler back back to the blower. And so there's a part number for that. It's a Gates part number. It's 28468, and it's by Gates. And so in case you guys need that information, that's the piping we used. Now, as far as the belt routing goes, we have an Innovator balancer on the front here that has 3 pins that go into the front of the snout of the crank. That's just to help strengthen the crank. And so this is approximately 8.5 inches in diameter. And it goes up and over an idler, down to the alternator, up to the power steering, and then over, I don't know if you guys can see, there's an idler pulley underneath the blower. This is part of the blower. Goes around the blower, or around the idler pulley, around the blower pulley, and then back down around the water pump, and then around the tensioner, and back to the balancer. And for that one, we used a 106-inch Gates belt. I'm not sure if you guys will be using the same or not, but in case you need it, that's the one we used. As far as the fittings go, unfortunately, we had to use a lot of brass fittings. This is a very unique setup. The reservoir has 3/4-inch fittings on it, and the fittings that come off the blower are 5/8 inch. So of course we needed adapters in between to go from 5/8 to 3/4 inch piping. And from there, again, coming out of the reservoir on the other side was 3/4 inch piping. And then I had to snake it down to 5/8 inch, do a 90-degree turn. And then I cut a hole in the firewall right there, but not the firewall, sorry, the body of the car by the battery, so that we could go out to the front to where let me get my flashlight, to the front bumper where I mounted the pump. Now the pump, if this bracket looks familiar to you, it should. It's actually the air conditioner condenser canister holder, which I chopped a little bit off the top, and I used the second hole on the bracket to basically bolt it to the body of the car. And the 90-degree bend elbow at the top is actually from our EGR pump, which this car won't be using anymore either. So we cannibalized a lot of the plumbing from there. It had some good 90-degree elbows there, so we used one of those to go from there into through the body of the car and into the battery area. And then out of there, we again have 3/4 inch piping that leaves the pump and goes into the intercooler. And this, again, very unique fittings, because one side of the intercooler is 3/4 inch, the other side is 1 inch. It's a 1 inch outlet, which was surprising to us. But so they have a 1 inch outlet coming out of the intercooler, and then I used a 90-degree bend and another converter to move it down back to a 5/8 inch hose, and the 5/8 inch hose travels all the way back to the back of the blower. And so I hope that helps you guys a little bit with the blower routing and stuff. I strongly recommend that you put these hoses on the back of the blower before you put the blower in the car. It's nearly impossible to put it on once it's in there. This little space here, the driver's side is going to be the only way you're going to be able to reach the back of the hoses, and you're going to need really skinny arms to get back there. or maybe you can get your wife or your girlfriend to help you, but otherwise try to do everything while it's out of the car. We also installed a boost gauge and the fuel pressure sensor for the fuel pump on here as well, right prior to putting it into the car. And another thing to mention is the bracket for your speedo, for your cable, for your throttle body cable. It's going to be something you're also going to need to fabricate. So we fabricated a little bracket up here. We bolted it to one bolt to the front of the throttle body under there, and then another bolt to the front of the blower, and then and bolted our bracket off our stock intake manifold to that bracket, and that's how we got the cable going. So, and the geometry seems correct. So when you push the gas pedal, it seems to have the right geometry to work properly. So I hope that helps you guys a little bit with your project if you're thinking about going this way. Again, there's a lot of fabrication involved. It's there's no instructions that come with the kit. You need to fabricate everything yourself. One thing I didn't talk about yet is there's a vacuum line here by this pulley at the front. That's going to be where I still have to fabricate a line that'll be for this vacuum line that this one comes out of your main harness. This is for your HVAC controls, and I gotta make some kind of adapter that's going to go into that line. And then I still yet to do the oil catch can and do the routing and stuff for that. And I left the radiator out for now, just so that I can make this video to clarify some stuff. And for the steam vent piping, if you guys notice, there's some extra piping here. I went to Motion Raceworks, and actually not me, the owner of the car went to Motion Raceworks, and they ordered the stuff from there. And he wanted to use some high-end steam pipes, so just to give the car a nicer look. So we have those running. He wanted to run steam vent piping on the back of the block and the front of the block. So we got that connected as well. So I think that should just about cover it. Wiring, there's a switch for the intercooler fans, which you guys saw on the front of the intercooler. And the wiring for it, it's a little button. I routed it behind the computer, underneath the dash. You'll have to excuse the dash. The car is still completely in pieces, but it's going to come out in the center console, and it's going to be mounted inside the ashtray for the driver. So we got that mounted there. And again, we had to extend the wires on that one too, because the wires were way too short for that. Some of the other things we installed was an AEM wideband and an AEM boost gauge. Those ones, the wires were actually the perfect length to go from everything from the driver's side. They went in through the driver's side behind the computer and went all the way across underneath the dash, and we connected them to an A-pillar on the driver's side. So yeah, I might make another video in the future to update this project. This is not my car. It's actually belongs to a buddy of mine, but I was coming in to help him with his project here, because I thought it was a really cool project to be a part of. We don't know anybody here locally that's running the same setup or has gone to this extreme with using an LS2 and a TVS2300. So I might add some more videos in the future to this project if I get an opportunity to do so. But that's it for now. All right, take care.